Number 3, this is my favorite one, as my team will know. Don't chase arrows. Red arrows, green arrows, flat arrows. We love doing that. And our bosses love us to do that too, right? So how many times a day, week, month, do we check our dashboards? A lot, right? In digital, if it moves, you can measure it. But it does not mean that you should care about it at all, right? Know the things that matter most. Know the things that you should be tracking as an organization, and know what drives the momentum of the marketing group, and then everything else is noise. It doesn't mean you shouldn't track it, but it does mean that you should not care about it, at least not right now, not in the context of trying to drive performance. Misusing data that we have more access and availability to than we ever have in the history of being marketers, it ruins great marketing. Absolutely ruins it. Brand campaigns still work, contrary to popular belief. Mid-funnel activations still work, contrary to popular belief. All of those things actually drive less expensive conversions. Every single client that we have ever worked with at Oodle since 2009 that we have applied upper funnel and mid-funnel tactics to, their cost for conversion has gone down. Why? Because marketing is marketing. It's half psychology, right? I need to remember you at the time that I have a problem and then go find my consideration set, spend 75% of my buyer journey researching all these things, and then ultimately conclude that you are the right fit for me, right? All of that is upper funnel and mid-funnel activity. And we forget about that as marketers. We don't produce content to help nurture people down that path. We're not helpful in a lot of cases. And that ruins the great marketing work that you're trying to do. So, tell you a quick story. This is a real client that is a hot dog brand that may or may not have a hot dog eating contest on the 4th of July every year. This client was very focused on the data, very focused on red and green arrows, okay? But monthly reporting is fake news. I promise this is my only political joke. Maybe the wrong day for it. But monthly reporting is fake news. It does not tell the whole story. It does not paint the whole picture. In this particular client's case, it was a 10% underselling of the results. By looking at monthly results, we were actually penalizing the marketing that we were doing. All the great marketing that we were doing that had upper funnel, mid funnel, and low level tactics didn't represent the actual outcomes. Why? Because we were looking at a lens that was too narrow. We were looking too closely at the data, and when you zoomed out and you looked at what the actual results were over a longer period of time, they were 10% better, right? So zooming out, use technology to do it, and don't get so focused on chasing those red and green arrows, and I promise you, you will have better outcomes in the end. But that's really hard to sell into your leadership team, right? It's be patient, be patient, be patient. It's gonna work, it's gonna work, we gotta give it time. No one wants to hear that at a C-suite level, right? Which is why we have to get some of that buy-in, and we'll talk a little more about some strategies and activities that you can do to get that in just a bit. One other principle about this, and this is actually still that same client, that we need to remember, especially in things like media activations, is that always-on campaigns always deliver better results. Why is that? Well, this chart on the right is actually put together by a programmatic vendor that we were working with as part of this activation. And I love this chart because it shows you the differences between where the machine learning calibrates, so that's like kind of the spiky thing, right? It takes a little bit of time for machine learning and algorithmic things to do their job and get working. And then cost per acquisition goes down over time. The problem is that when we chase red and green arrows, we end up looking at this thing and we're like, oh God, we better stop. It's not working. I got red arrows this month, right? And then you start the cycle all over again. When you start and stop campaigns or activations prematurely, it not only ruins your marketing because now you're not reaching people where they need to be, but it also gets incredibly expensive because every time this algorithmic change has to reset, your costs spike, and then they come down a little bit, and then they spike, and then they come down a little bit. So this is a great visual representation of make sure before you stop something that you're measuring the right things and you're making the decisions based on real information, not something that is chasing red and green arrows. A final point here around campaign activations is that your activations do not have to be a shotgun. So I've been talking a lot about, make sure it's a full funnel and make sure you're doing awareness and consideration and decision and evangelism and all the normal marketing principles everybody here knows. What I thought was an interesting representation, and we actually stole this from Google, I can't take credit, we just made it look like us. But the principle from here is that your activations, they kind of work like a reverse waterfall, right? So you fill a bucket, you optimize that bucket to a certain point. You'll never get to 100%, don't try, right? Get to a place that you're satisfied with what your market share looks like, what your reach looks like, what your numbers look like, and then take the rest of the money, do not put it in that same activation tactic, expand. Go into social, go up the funnel until you have that full funnel activation campaign where you want it and it's dialed in, right? That's what a really, really solid always-on activation looks like.